Okay, good morning. I hope you are well. If I'm right, you have just had an assembly. So, what we're going to do today is I'm going to take you through a little bit of what I expect from your assignments, how I expect you to kind of, I'll click off that first, how I'm expecting you to kind of complete the next stage, what the time frame for that is, so on and so forth. I am sorry, actually, this is all in here. I'm sorry I'm not there today. I'm unlikely to be in on Monday either, but I hope to be back in with you guys on Friday, so a week today. I want to very quickly well, firstly, I hope you had a good October break. I actually haven't had the opportunity to say that in the videos. The video you did on Monday was one that I made up for a previous absence, but you didn't get to it, so it would have seemed a bit all over the place. But I hope you had a good October break. I hope everyone is doing well, and I'm I'm really excited to see you guys whenever it is that I see you. You have two sections of your assignment due. They are technically due today. I've looked over the YouTube videos, and well, it doesn't help that on one of the videos I put down the wrong link. So I understand that some people have completed them, and fantastic, very, very well done to those people. Those of you who haven't, I have only had three emails asking me for extra assistance or extensions, so I assume most of you are most of the way through. Realistically, I should be able to expect everyone's assignments emailed to me by the end of the day today. If this isn't the case, if for whatever reason you haven't completed the response to the brief and other bit, uh, the categories section on language. If you haven't done these two sections, uh, then email me and let me know. Let me know why. Let me know if you've got any issues, if you need any help, if there's anything I can do to support you. And then I do really need you to get this done by Monday, because on Monday I'm going to assign the next part of the assignment. I will still give you 2 weeks for the next part, which is going to be on narrative, which we're going to look at today. I'm going to give you 2 weeks for this one part to give you a bit of a break, but then after that it will be 2 weeks again to do two parts. So we need to keep on top of this, otherwise you're going to find yourself kind of feeling like you're drowning, and I don't want that for anyone. So do try and make sure that you get the assignment done. If you have any issues, let me know. I've made all the videos, the instructional videos, public on YouTube. So all you need to do is go onto my channel, and then it's literally one, two, three, four, and then five and six are rolled into one video. It says step one at the beginning of the video names, and that will take you through what to do, where to go, what to download, and how to do it. I have had a few people say that they're struggling with the writing. Without being there, guys, there's very little really useful help I can give you other than just saying have a go. If you want, you can do it in a bit of a bullet point plan. I would still expect it to be kind of fairly lengthy, but you can kind of condense it a little bit, and we can see where there's a bit of wiggle room. But do your best, get it emailed to me, and that way I can start marking them, and I can start telling you where exactly you need to tighten up a little bit, and where you can expand a little bit. So, today's lesson, we're going to have a very brief preparatory look at narrative and representation. We're actually not going to look at representation this lesson. I got to slide 25 and then thought that's probably a lot for them, on a Friday after a holiday. So we'll get you to slide 25, and then hopefully you'll have a bit of time to watch some more Buffy. Um, so yeah, we're going to look mainly at narrative. We're going to look at some of the key elements of narrative, and you're going to start thinking about how narrative applies to the piece of media that you are making. These are two areas we've studied, and so it shouldn't take us too long, and it shouldn't take too much explaining. We will write on both narrative and representation in the third section of your assignments, and I'll explain how on Monday. Your learning intention today is that you're able to identify and explain what the most important elements of narrative are in your given piece of media, and that you can explain how this narrative is created using language and crucially representation. What I mean by that is if you're talking about the equilibrium, you're going to explain what you're going to do and how you're going to do it. And when you're talking about how you're going to do it, you're going to reference other key aspects like representation and like language, maybe even category. Right? Your success criteria is that you should be able to plan a narrative for your own piece of media where you can identify the key elements that lend to or create narrative points, i.e., talking about things like Todorow's narrative theory, or Barth's narrative theory, or Propp's narrative theory, or Levi Strauss's narrative theory, or the Enigma codes. All very exciting things I'm sure you can't wait to hear about. The other element that I want you to be able to do is analyze the effectiveness of these elements in your plan by looking at the language and representation used to create them. So again, this is about linking it back to the other key aspects. This doesn't make much sense at the moment, I'm sure, but once we get into it, you'll hopefully start to understand. So basically what I want you to be able to do is understand how to talk about narrative and how to create narrative in your media. Simple, hopefully. Today we are going to look at Todorow's narrative theory, we're going to look at Enigma codes, and we're going to look at binary opposition. We're going to leave Propp's narrative theory and Barth's narrative theory until Monday, purely because they both take just a little bit more explaining. They're two that we haven't overly talked about this year, and so I just want to recap these ones a wee bit quicker. The first one we're going to talk about is it's Todorow's narrative theory. It's a quick task. It should be very quick for all of you. I have talked quite a bit about Todorov this year. If you took media last year, you should definitely know this. And if you didn't, then you might want to quickly ask your partner during this task if you need a wee bit of help. I want you to write down in order what you remember to be the 5 relevant stages of Todorov's narrative theory. All right, they should be in order. Okay. If whoever's taking the lesson, thank you, whoever's taking the lesson. I really appreciate you giving up your time. I realise it's not ideal, so thank you very, very much. If you wouldn't mind pausing the video to give them just a couple of minutes to do this. Thank you. Okay, so equilibrium, disruption, quest, resolution, equilibrium. Probably should have highlighted. Oh, that didn't help at all. Ooh, it's all going wrong. It's all falling apart. So your equilibrium, remember, is the status quo. So it's kind of the situation, how things are set up at the beginning. Okay, it doesn't have to be good. It's just how things are. It's the acknowledged order of things. All right. Then you have your disruption. Something happens to shatter the status quo and throw the character's lives into chaos. Something happens to create turmoil or chaos or some kind of disruption, which is the word we've got, to the status quo. Sorry guys, this took me a bit longer to make than I intended, so it's 10 to 10 at the moment and my brain isn't working. Then you have your quest. Your characters strive to fix, resolve, or understand whatever it is that's happened in the disruption. They're trying to come to terms with it, or to beat it, or to fix it, or to assist it, or to do whatever it is that they need to do. Now, resolution and climax, it's resolution really that I'm looking for, but some of you might have put climax, and that's fine. We're really going to talk about them as much the same thing. And that's basically, in a nutshell, they either succeed in their quest or they fail. It's that big end moment where it all either goes well or it all falls apart. All right, that's your resolution. It's that big kind of end to the endeavors. And what that leads to is a new equilibrium. And it is a new equilibrium. It is not the same as the old equilibrium. There has to be something different from the original, be it character development, be it plot development, be it kind of a greater understanding of themes, learning, anything like that. But there does need to be some kind of accepted change from the start to the end. Okay, and we should be familiar with that. When we're looking at that, if we remember things like Once More with Feeling, actually that's not a great one. If we remember the Gentleman episode, the equilibrium is Buffy is a kind of a vampire slayer in Sunnydale, but that's fairly typical for her. She kills the bad guys. There's nothing kind of major to worry about. The disruption is the arrival of the Gentleman, and they steal all the voices. The quest is the they endeavour to get their voices back and to beat the gentleman. The resolution is that not the final scene, sorry, is one of the latter scenes where Buffy and Riley are in the bell tower and they break the box and get their voices back. Buffy screams, kills the gentleman, things go back to normal. And the equilibrium is, although things go back to normal for the rest of Sunnydale, Buffy and Riley now understand more about each other, and it leads to an awkward kind of tension between the two. Right? If you think about the Vinnie Jones CPR advert, and I'm using this because it is both a public service announcement and an advert, your equilibrium is Vinnie Jones is a big gangster, your disruption is someone has stopped breathing, your quest is to bring this guy back to life, or, keep him alive, not necessarily, it's not, resource, but keep him alive or perhaps bring him back to life. Your resolution is that, yep, that's what they do, they perform CPR and he is kept kind of going, and the equilibrium is that now we understand how to do this. All right, so it does still follow the same steps for that CPR advert. When you're looking at a normal advert, and I will talk about this later, it's more about what to leave out than what it is to keep in. Okay, you're thinking about what don't I want to include in my advert. And we will talk about that in a moment. That moment is now, apparently. For an advert, you need to be aware of the overall arc of your narrative, so you do need to be aware of what your whole movie is going to be about, so that you know what to put in, and more importantly, what to leave out. If you're creating an advert, and I want you to have a quick think about this, what kind of things do you want to put in, and what kind of things do you want to leave out? I want you to think about it, and I do want you to create an answer to this question. In that answer, I want you to reference specific elements of Todoro's narrative theory. I want everyone to do this, even if you're not doing an advert. So if you're creating an advert for a movie, would you want to put in the equilibrium? Why? Would you want to put in the resolution? Why? How much? Would you want to put in the new equilibrium? And then why? Well, why would you or why wouldn't you? Okay, which elements would you want to put in? How much of them would you want to put in, and why? If whoever's taking the class could do me a massive favour and pause the video and just give them a moment to answer that, give them 4 minutes. That would be amazing. Thank you. All right. Where am I? Have I gone too far? Yes. So, for I'm just going to leave it this time. For your equilibrium for an advert, yes, you want to hint at the way that things start out. You don't need to include it in detail, but you want to create this equilibrium. If you're doing a horror movie, do I explain why here? Sorry, I'm getting distracted. If you're doing a horror movie, you want to establish who the characters are, where they are, what they're doing, what the dynamic is between them, because only then can we understand why they react the way they react to the horror movie. Right? If you are doing an action movie, we want to know what these characters' lives were like before everything started going wrong. Even in the advert, we want a hint to that. With a disruption, yes, you want to include your disruption, but you want to do it carefully. Oh, I've gone too far again. You want to highlight that there is a disruption. You might even want to suggest what the disruption is, but you don't want to give away any interesting plot twists. Adam, you're doing a zombie movie. It's going to be hard not to hint at zombies being the disruption, but if you, in your movie, it might be a relevant plot twist as to how the zombies came about, and you might want to kind of keep away from that. You might want to shield that piece of information. Okay. Some of you are doing other horror movies, and it might be that a killer turns up, and yep, that's fine. Killer turning up is an equilibrium. Is a disruption. But you might want to keep away from kind of when they turn up or who they first kill, things like that. Anything that gives away too much. The quest will ultimately be the main focus of your advert. The quest is the majority of your movie. It's where the majority of the action of the movie will take place. It's where tension is built, characters develop, people grow. So that will ultimately take up a huge portion of your advert. And again, just make sure you don't give away too much. Your climax and your resolution can be used. They don't have to be. And if you do use them, you use them sparingly. You cannot give anything away that will spoil the movie. Okay, you cannot put in your horror movie. You can't have the guy in the mask unmasking in the advert if that's actually who the guy in the mask is, because everyone will hate you and no one will want to watch your movie. All right? If it is a movie, if it's an action movie, you can't have the villain being gunned down and killed in your advert because that spoils your movie. You can have a fight scene between the hero and the villain, or the monster and the hero, or you can have an intimation of romance between your two lead characters, but you can't give away how the movie ends. It has to be sparing. Anything from the climax and resolution needs to be dealt with carefully. And finally, you'll have your new equilibrium. Do not put anything in from your new equilibrium. It's too risky because by that point, it's the end of your movie. Anything you put in is affected by how your movie ended, so you do not put that in an advert. On your storyboard, what I want you guys to do if you're doing an advert is I want you to highlight what elements in your advert apply to each stage. All right. So your storyboard should take you through the entirety of your advert, and you should have that done by now. If you don't, spend this time working on that. Okay. And then what I will do is I will delete this. This PowerPoint will be on YouTube, so if you need to go back and do this at a later point, you will be able to. You should have finished your storyboard. Now what I want you to do is go through it, and for each scene, because your storyboard will cut about, it won't just be linear. Okay, it'll cut from resolution to quest to equilibrium to quest to equilibrium. So I want you to tell me on your storyboard what each element applies to in terms of Todorov. Is it the equilibrium? Is it the quest? Is it the resolution? Or is it the disruption? And then I want you to describe very briefly what's going on in this stage and how that applies to, say, the equilibrium. So if your first one establishes an equilibrium, you can just write on one of the, like on a wee kind of arrow coming off of it, this is the equilibrium, and then in your notes below it, you'll just write establishing characters and setting before disruption. Brilliant, that's fine. It's very sparse, but it's fine. Okay, and that's what I want you guys to do if you're working on an advert. Do that just now. We are going to carry on because there are other people who aren't doing the advert though, so you can ignore me now if you're doing the advert. For the short movies, it's very straightforward. You just need to make sure that you have used Todorov's narrative theory. Okay. Now, Brooklyn, I'm slightly concerned for yours. I want you to make sure that yours does, in some way, shape, or form, apply to Todorov's narrative theory, i.e., that it does have a narrative and it's not just random events. Random events will be too difficult to write about, and I want to make that kind of clear. If you have any questions, you can email me. But if you're doing a short movie, I want you to follow Todorov's narrative theory. It's that simple. Yours will be linear. So all you need to do is differentiate where your equilibrium becomes your disruption, where your disruption becomes your quest, where your quest becomes your resolution, and where your resolution becomes your new equilibrium. And then explain how. Hannah, this does actually apply to you too. I know you're doing a public service announcement, but because it's fictional, it's basically a movie in the long run. So what I would advise is you maybe start with a kind of start warning about how the world is now, and then you kick into some of the creepy stuff from your kind of post-apocalyptic. My words are failing me. Public service announcement. Again, if you're having any trouble, if any of you are having any trouble with this, you can email me over the weekend. Okay, I will probably be making the lesson for Monday on Sunday, so just so you know. Yeah, so sorry, if you're doing a short movie, on your storyboard, highlight what section of Todorov's narrative theory each panel is in, and quickly describe what's going on in this stage and how it relates to that section. Public service announcements are a little bit more tricky for narrative, so you guys are going to have a wee bit of a tougher time for this, but it's not impossible. Todorov's narrative theory can, and I would argue should, apply to a public service announcement as well. You can create a narrative to build your announcement on. Something along the lines of, I think most of you who are doing public service announcements are doing them on COVID. If you're not, you can email me what you're doing and we can brainstorm how you would approach it. But your equilibrium would be introducing COVID. We are living in a time of COVID, coronavirus. That's it. That's the world we live in, and you would introduce that because that's our normal now. Depressingly, the disruption though would be like if you're teaching people to wash their hands or wear their mask properly or just stay safe. The disruption is that some people aren't keeping safe, And that would be your thing. You'd be like, yes, we're living in a time of coronavirus, that's the reality. However, some people are keeping safe, some people aren't following the guidelines, and that's putting everyone at risk, especially themselves. So, your quest, we're going to teach you how to be safe. We're going to teach you this, 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 and this. And again, that'll be the majority, teaching them what to do. Resolution, recap what you've gone through. Now you know to be safe. You know to be safe, and a quick recap. Think the Vinnie Jones CPR advert, okay? It had the 3 pictures and a very, very quick advert, okay? It was call 999, link your hands together, and then put hard and fast to staying alive. Okay, very quick recap to remind you of what you learned. That was the resolution. And the equilibrium is that now you know what to do. You're safer and it's better for everyone. Hooray. Okay, so it's still got a narrative. It's just much more basic, which is fine. So on your storyboards, what I want you to do is highlight what sections of Todoro's narrative theory each panel is in. Now, guys, this applies to everyone. If you don't have your storyboards with you, do this in your jotter. All right, even if you're just going to kind of summarize it because you're not going to draw out the whole storyboard again. Summarize your advert and the key sections as they apply to Todoro's narrative theory. So for your public service announcement on the storyboard, highlight what section of Todoro's narrative theory each panel is in. If you're struggling with that, it means you might have to rehash your storyboard a little bit to make it apply to Todoro's narrative theory, and I do want you to do that. I don't want you to just go, nah, mine doesn't work. Okay, that will leave you with risking having too little to write. So I want you to try and do this now. For everyone, it is outline which panel falls into which step of Todoro's narrative theory, explain how it falls into that step of Todoro's narrative theory, and explain why this is important and or effective. You can write in shorthand and you can use your jotters. This is just notes for you. If whoever's taking the class could pause this, they'll probably need a good amount of time for this. Probably give them 15-20 minutes. Thank you. Sorry. Rude. I'm guessing that was paused for a while, but if it wasn't, if this was run on, this is an example of something you could do. The opening scene of my advert will establish the initial equilibrium of my movie. That's what I'm going to do in my opening scenes, so panels 1 to 4. It'll do this by creating a camera-angle scene in which the protagonist lives. So Timmy is running around having a great time as a wide-eyed 6-year-old in his medieval village. And why am I doing this? Well, it makes it even more heart-wrenching when the protagonist's family all get murdered and he gets booted off a cliff and left for dead. Alright? It makes a nice contrast. So I need that equilibrium established for my short movie. So that when it all kind of goes down, it feels even more heart-wrenching. Alright? Kind of your classic superhero story and things like that as well. Oh. Anyway, carrying on. Once you guys have, so the next thing I'm going to talk about is going to be moving on from Todoro's narrative theory. So please only move on to that section of the lesson once everyone's been given a fair chance at doing Todoro's narrative theory part. Thanks. So I put in a GIF. This is my only GIF. It does appear twice. I went too far, but I put in a GIF because it just wouldn't be me without a GIF. Jim Carrey as the Riddler. What is an Enigma code? I want you thinking about Enigma codes. This is going to be the only thing I think I'm going to have you copy down during the lesson. But what is an Enigma code? Those of you who have not seen or are not familiar with Batman will not get the reference in my GIF. It probably means there's a lot of blank faces in the classroom at the moment. I don't know who I'd be relying on to understand my pun. Probably whoever's taking the class. But I want you to take a minute and try and write down what you think an Enigma code is. If whoever's taking the class could pause the video, it would be greatly appreciated. Thank you. Alright, so Enigma codes. Oh, my washing machine is done, so it's going to beep at me for a minute because, oh, it's stopped. No, it's not. That's my washing machine. No, it's not. That's my dishwasher. Either way, it's going to beep at me angrily for a moment, and then I'll stop. I do apologise. Enigma codes. So, an Enigma code is a question within a piece of media. Can you copy this down, by the way, the bit in yellow? An Enigma code, right, I'm going to go open the dishwasher. Sorry, I apologise. It would have just continued to shout at me until I opened it, and that would have really bugged me. So, an Enigma code is a question within a piece of media that hooks your interest. A question you have to watch that piece of media to have it answered. Right? If you're doing a movie, if you're thinking about a movie, a TV show, or even a short film, it's something that appears early. Who are the gentlemen in Hush? Okay, why are they dancing and singing in Once More with Feeling? What will the trio do now that they killed Katrina in that episode where the trio killed Katrina? What's that episode called? And Confident Summer will know, but I definitely don't. I've forgotten. And that's what an Enigma code is. It's a question. It's something introduced that makes you go, "Ooh, I'm intrigued. I'm curious. What's going on? What's going to happen?" All right. An easy way to think of it is your classic murder mystery. Someone turns up dead. Your Enigma code is who done it. All right. It's just a question. It's something that you have to watch to find out. Something that hooks your interest, and you have to watch to find out. This is my explanation of the GIF. An enigma is a mystery. The Riddler's name in Batman is Edward Nigma or Enigma. Enigma. It's a pun because it's hilarious. I was going to say because I'm hilarious. I didn't come up with it, but puns are hilarious. It's also a good way to remember if you forget what Enigma code is. If you can remember Riddler, Enigma. It's not a great way to remember actually, to be honest. If you're a Batman fan, it'll make it easier. Yeah. So that's what an Enigma code is. The application of an Enigma code is quite straightforward. Now, what you're going to find is we're going to gun through this. I'm not going to set you any tasks when I'm talking about Enigma codes or binary opposition. All I'm going to do is tell you about it. And then what I want you to do when I'm done is just think about, okay, how will that apply to either my movie, trailer, or public service announcement? So, movie. Introduce an Enigma code early and solve it. Okay? You have to solve it. If in your short movie you have someone die in the first 30 seconds and then by the end of the 2 minutes I don't know who killed them, I'm going to be annoyed. Alright? You have to have Enigma codes, you must have them in a movie, and you must solve them. Okay? Trailer, you have to have several Enigma codes, okay? 2 or 3 different things to engage different audiences, okay? Your Enigma code, one of them might be a kind of whodunit murder mystery, one of them might be a will they, won't they romantic element, one of them might be a cliffhanger type thing, someone in peril. You need to have several. You want to think about how they apply to your different audience bases. So if you're doing a dark horror with a romantic element, you want to have an Enigma code for the horror, an Enigma code for the romance, and an Enigma code for the kind of maybe a comedic element. I don't know. Comedy Enigma codes are more difficult. I'm not going to lie to you. It'd be like having someone say knock knock and then not finishing the joke. Did that work? Maybe. Sorry. But have several Enigma codes anyway, whatever your trailer may be. Have several Enigma codes, things that we want to know more about. Whether it's just an ominous letter or an ominous box or a very tense situation or 2 people staring at each other angrily, it's still an Enigma code because we still don't know what's going on and we don't know how it's going to resolve. But the important thing is you do not solve your Enigma codes in your trailers. If you solve them, the people don't need to watch the movie. If you go, oh, is the baddie going to win? No, look, here he is getting killed. Then people are going to be like, oh, okay, well, we don't have to watch that. All right. For your public service announcements, you have Enigma codes, but they have to be very simple. Your public service announcements are to appeal to the people in the public who are least likely to have cottoned on to kind of ideas in other formats. Basically, you need to make sure that they appeal to the kind of the least intelligent demographics, so the youngest kids, the lowest levels of education, and things like that. So you need Enigma codes because Enigma codes interest people, but they need to be very, very simple. Introduce it early, solve it, and then emphasize your solving, as this will likely be your whole point. So your Enigma code for your public service announcement on coronavirus can simply be, but how do we keep safe? Well, I don't know. Oh, and then we're going to find out throughout the course of the entire public service announcement, we're going to find out how to keep safe. That's us solving it. Then at the end, we're going to recap how to keep safe, which ties in with our Buggerell's narrative theory. Just to emphasize it to your audience. Alright, but your Enigma code should be very, very simple. Alright? Generally, I quite like having a prop or something like that attached to an Enigma code. It could be a bottle of hand gel or a mask or something like that. It could be a weapon. It could be I don't know, lipstick or a rose in a sinister way. Or it could be, a missed phone call. I don't know. But I like having something tangible that makes a physical Enigma code. It's easier for you to talk about. So think about Enigma codes. Think about how you can work them into your assignment. All right. Again, for some of them, more specifically, Adam, your Enigma code might be looking along the lines of how did we get here, or won't they survive? Hannah, your Enigma code's probably going to be basically finding out more about the world, how it got there, and things like that. But it's up to you. It's completely up to you guys. So we're going to talk about binary opposition, and then that's us. What do you think binary opposition is? There's two words in it. They are fairly straightforward words. They're actually not. They're quite complicated words, I lied. But what do you think binary opposition means? Have a think, write down in your jotter what you think it means, and if whoever's taking the class could pause this, I would be very much obliged. Thank you. Okay. So binary meaning basically meaning something that has two states relating to two different things. So it's either one or the other. And opposition meaning opposites. Okay? So there's two states and they are opposites. Binary opposition almost always informs the narrative, and it is the contrast and conflicts which motivate characters to act, change, or strive. Binary opposition can also be more subtle. Okay, it can be like binary opposition can be used in terms of lighting or music or color, but it's almost always to link back to characters or to kind of very, very plot relevant points. Binary opposition allows for a clear message to be sent in public service announcements as well. And apparently, I just got bored there. But what I meant to write is binary opposition allows adverts to clearly represent the key characters. Alright. Do I talk through this? Yes, I do. So, with binary opposition, you're thinking about simple things: good and evil, night and day, alive and dead, light and dark, hot and cold, big and small. Okay, your binary opposition is very, very clear: cowboys and Indians, and Nazis and the good guys. All right. I say the good guys, by the way, because I was actually thinking like Nazi zombie movies and Nazis in space instead of your traditional Nazis. And they're not always fought by the Allies. They're almost always fought by Americans, actually. Because it's America for you. So what you're doing is you're picking out two sides to something. Now, like I said, it can be more subtle. Okay, if you're wanting to represent a character as evil, you can do that using dark clothes, the color red, ominous music, darker lighting, creepy moving aboutness. I meant like body language, but that didn't come out well. I apologise. And if you want to represent a character as good, you might represent them in brighter, lighter clothes. They might be more light-hearted, nicer music, brighter lighting, kind of more pleasant settings around them. Okay, settings are great for binary opposition. If you're doing like an action movie, Johnny, I think you're doing an action movie. If I've been talking to people out there who quite possibly aren't, but if Johnny's there, Johnny's doing an action movie trailer, and if you were doing that, you could have a kind of a hero's fortress and or home, and the villain's fortress and our home. If you think Clark Kent, he's kind of your all American farmer. He lives on a big farm. It's very natural, rustic, rural, kind of healthy country living. And then you've got Lex Luthor, who lives in kind of high tech mansions and labs and skyscrapers. It's very modern, scientific, cold, um, kind of. There's a word, but I can't think about it. I can't come up with it. Nope. But that kind of cold scientific feel. It's kind of soulless. That's binary opposition. Okay. The two are very very different. The two settings are very very different. Now the use of binary opposition applies to all forms of media. Okay. A short movie, it should highlight the two opposing sides, and there should be two opposing sides in your short piece of in your short film, be it right and wrong, good and evil, love and hate, whatever it may be. There should be two sides, and you should be able to represent this using binary opposition. Whether you what language you use to do that is up to you. You should be able to do it. It's also true for your advert. In the advert, it should be more obvious though. Because your advert, you've got a much shorter period of time. You want to really ham up your binary opposition. You want to make costume clear. So Adam's doing zombies. Binary opposition, alive and dead. The zombies should look dead. The people should look alive. Simple. Okay? Really nice, easy use of binary opposition. Binary opposition that allows us to understand where the kind of the tension is going to come from in the plot. And in your public service announcement, it should be clear who is doing things. Wow. I'm embarrassed at myself. It should be clear who is doing things right and who is doing things wrong. Similar to the advert, this should be obvious. So if you have a character who maybe, it depends how you want to represent. But if you want to represent someone who is failing to gel their hands as they go out of class, you could have kind of deadly, no music, disapproving glares. They could be dressed kind of, tie, very undone, scruffy, and looking nefarious, or something like that. And then you could contrast that with someone looking a bit smarter, gelling their hands and going out of the classroom. Okay, it's it's a bit of a naff example, but you can use binary opposition, and you should, to emphasize the right and the wrong in what you're wanting people to do. Okay. Yeah. You can use it even in mood, or like you're using some kind of song in yours. If you were showing people doing it wrong, you could just cut the music, cricket chirping kind of moment, where it's just that person doing wrong and everyone just stares, and it makes it quite an awkward, uncomfortable mood. And then the happy, upbeat people doing it right to the music mood. Okay, you can use binary opposition and mood as well. I'm sorry, guys, I do realise this has just been me talking now for like the last 20 odd minutes, and that's no fun. But I just wanted to make sure that you had this, so that when we do the kind of more, basically when we start writing it on Monday, you know what's going on. You know what's a happy app, and that's it. Now, ultimately, what I want you to do is I want you to take a wee kind of 10-15 minutes just to think about how you can use binary opposition and how you can use Enigma codes and how you can use Todorow's narrative theory in your piece of media. Alright, these are only 3 of the 5 areas we're going to look at, but you will need to be able to talk about them in depth, so you should be able to use each one in depth. Even if you talk about it and you decide not to use elements of it for whatever reason, that's fine. If you're doing an advert and you say, I'm not going to include my resolution because, that's a valid judgment based on research relating to your narrative. Choosing not to do something counts just as much as choosing to do it. I feel like this has actually gone on for longer than I expected it to. 40 minutes. Yep, the odds are this is taken up after the assembly of the majority of the lesson. So what I'm going to say is, instead of watching any Buffy today, I am going to ask that you work on your assignments. Okay, either planning and prepping your narrative section, or if you want to wait a little bit until Monday where we'll go over it a wee bit more, then you can look at your storyboards, you can look at your use of language, and you can look at your response to the brief. Okay. Again, can't emphasise enough how sorry I am that I'm not there. I hope you're all keeping well. Thank you very much to the members of staff who have taken the class, both today and on Monday. I really appreciate that. And hopefully I will see you next week. All the best.